democracy, and 3. Economic development to ensure the well-being of all. In the case of the first two, our leaders found solutions quickly, though they were different and difficult. But in case of the third challenge, their success seems to be much more limited and arduous. The challenge was definitely more difficult to achieve. The nation even now continues to face the same challenge. In this essay, we will be discussing about the various political policies and 5-year plans involved in the nation's economic development. We will also find out answers to all the challenges faced by our leaders. The key issues and points we will discuss in the plan development are: which strategy was adopted by our leaders in the first 2 decades and why? What were the main achievements and limitations of this strategy? Why was this development strategy abandoned in later years? Firstly, let's try to understand the concept of development for well-being of all. The country was blessed with fairly rich raw materials for industrial development such as iron, coal, and many other resources. The exploitation and utilization of available natural resources for the overall development of the country was key for the development. It needed vast capital and human resources. The exploitation and utilization presented problems in terms of the location, environmental, and many social issues. For example, rich iron ores were available in Odisha's interior and forest areas. It offered good potential for the location of the steel industry because of its close location with nearby coal mines as well. The area was basically inhabited by tribals far removed from the modern way of life, lacking basic education and even good agricultural practices. The tribals were apprehensive and opposed the construction of industries. It would destroy their way of life, their ancestral properties, and further displacement from their home and livelihood. The environmentalists, though in small number, also feared that mining and industry would pollute the environment. As feared by social leaders also, the existing tribal population was badly affected in terms of their livelihood and later gave rise to violent movements such as Naxalism. Therefore, the issue was quite conflicting, enveloping political, social, environmental, and developmental aspects of the nation as a whole. Therefore, the government after independence had to undergo several times similar issues and processes to make and implement a series of decisions. Socio-political controversy. All the decisions by the government were bound together by a shared vision or model of economic development. All the political leaders agreed that development of India lies in its social as well as economic growth. And for that, the government should play a prominent role rather than leaving the country's growth on businessmen, industrialists, and farmers themselves. There was disagreement, however, on the kind of role that the government must play in ensuring growth with justice. The areas of debates were: was a centralized institution really required to plan for the entire country? Should the government itself run some key industries and businesses? And lastly, is it justified to create undesirable socio-economic changes in the local and regional areas? Now let us take a look at how the process for development of the nation was decided. The first decade after independence witnessed a lot of debate around the question of deciding the process of the nation's development. The outcome of these discussions, everyone agreed, is that the country needs to go through the process of modernization as in the West, which involved the breakdown of traditional social structures and the rise of capitalism and liberalism. Modernization was also associated with the ideas of growth, material progress, and scientific rationality. Thus, on the eve of independence, India had before it 2 models of modern development: the liberal capitalist model, as in much of Europe and the US, and the socialist model, as in the USSR. The communist and socialist parties supported the Soviet model. They were backed by other leaders like Nehru in majority. This reflected a broad consensus that had developed during the national movement that any development of free India, whether social or economic, would not be based on similar lines as of any colonial government. The leaders also unanimously agreed during the discussions that the government will be fully responsible for the task of poverty alleviation and social and economic redistribution. There were debates, however, on to prioritize, whether it was industrialization or the development of agriculture or alleviation of rural poverty. Despite varying differences among the debaters, all gave consensus on one point, that was, that the development of the nation could not be left to private sectors, but it has to be taken up by the government. There was apprehension that privatization could again lead to unequal distribution of economic and social development, with huge disparity in income between different sections of the society. Thus, the process of development was decided. Evolution of the Planning Commission. Planning in India had an interesting history. In 1944, a section of the big industrialists got together and drafted a joint proposal for setting up a planned economy in the country. It was called the Bombay Plan. The Bombay Plan wanted the state to take major initiatives in industrial and other economic investments. This supposedly formulated the idea of establishing the Planning Commission later after independence. In fact, the idea of planning as a process of rebuilding economy earned a good deal of public support in the 40s and 1950s all over the world when one saw the impact of Great Depression in Europe, reconstruction of Japan and Germany after the World War, and the spectacular economic growth in the Soviet. All these experiences made the leaders realize the importance of formulating a planning commission for proceeding towards the development of the nation. Thus, in March 1950 came in existence the Planning Commission with Prime Minister Nehru as its chairperson. It became the most influential central body with the task of planning various policies and strategies designed for the development of India and implementing them after the approval in the Union Cabinet. Its scope of work. The resolution which set up the commission defined its scope of work in following terms. The citizens, men and women equally, have the right to an adequate means of livelihood. That the ownership and control of the material resources of the community are so distributed as best to subserve the common good, and that the operation of the economic system does not result in the concentration of wealth and means of production to the common detriment. The early initiatives of the plan. Similar to the USSR, the Planning Commission of India adopted for 5-year plans. The idea was very simple. The Government of India prepares a document that has a plan for all its income and expenditure for the next 5 years. Accordingly, the budget of the central and all the state governments is divided into two parts. Non-planned budget that is spent on routine items on a yearly basis, and a planned budget that is spent on a 5-year basis as per the priorities fixed by the plan. A 5-year plan has the advantage of permitting the government to focus on the larger picture and make long-term intervention in the economy. The draft of the first 5-year plan and then the actual plan document was released in December 1951. It generated a lot of excitement among the government and private sector employees, industrialists and farmers. The excitement with the planning reached its peak with the launching of the second 5-year plan in 1956 and continued somewhat till the third 5-year plan in 1961. Due to the miserable failure of the third plan, the government was forced to declare planned holidays from 1966 to 67, 1967 to 68, and 1968 to 69. The main reasons were the war, lack of resources, and increase in inflation and poor monsoon. Though many criticisms emerged both about the process and the priorities of these plans, the foundation of India's economic development was firmly in place by then. Let's now review the first 5-year plan. The first 5-year plan in 1951 to 1956 was considered a stepping stone for our nation's progress because it had a great role in the launching of Indian development after the independence. It focused strongly on agriculture production and also launched the industrialization of the country. Thus, it laid the foundation of mixed economy in the country with a great role for the public sector as an emerging welfare state. There was also the growing private sector, which was represented by some personalities who published the Bombay Plan. The most important feature of this phase was the active role of state in all economic sectors. Such a role was justified at that time because immediately after independence, India was facing basic problems of deficiency of capital and low capacity to save. The goal which the first 5 years strived at was eviction of poverty from India's economy. K. N. Raj, a young economist, was one of the key planners, and he argued that India should hasten slowly for the first 2 decades as a fast rate of development might endanger democracy. The main features of this plan were: since partition had severely affected the agriculture sector, the plan predominantly focused on agriculture development. About 27% of the total budget of Rs 2069 crore was invested on irrigation and dams, and 17% on other areas of agriculture. Large-scale projects like the Bhakra Nangal Dam were launched. The plan identified the pattern of land distribution in the country as the principal obstacle in the way of agricultural growth. It focused on land reforms as the key to the country's development and invested 4.1% of the total budget. One of the basic aims of the planners was to raise the level of national income, which could be possible only if the people saved more money than they spent. So the planners sought to push savings up. That too was difficult as the total capital stock in the country was rather low compared to the total number of employable people. Nevertheless, people's savings did rise in the first phase of the planned process until the end of the third 5-year plan. But the rise was not as spectacular as was expected at the beginning of the first plan. Later, from the early 1960s till the early 1970s, the proportion of savings in the country actually dropped consistently. Outcome of the plan. At the end of the plan period in 1956, the target growth rate of the first plan was 2.1% annual GDP growth. It, however, achieved the growth rate of 3.6%. The net domestic product went up by 15%. Thus, the plan was successful. Contracts were signed to start 5 steel plants, which came into existence in the middle of the second 5-year plan. 5 IITs were started as major technical institutions. The University Grant Commission, that is the UGC, was set up to take care of funding and take measures to strengthen the higher education in the country. The second 5-year plan. The second plan in 1956 to 1961 particularly stressed on the development of the public sector, particularly the heavy industries. The chief architect of this model was the statistician P.C. Mahalanobis. The plan attempted to determine the optimal allocation of investment between productive sectors in order to maximize long-run economic growth. The plan assumed a closed economy in which the main trading activity would be centered on importing capital goods. If the first plan had reached patience, the second wanted to bring about quick structural transformation by making changes simultaneously in all possible directions. The features of the second plan. The Congress party and the government declared that the socialist pattern of society was its goal. This was reflected in the second plan. The government imposed substantial tariffs on imports in order to protect domestic industries. Such protected environment helped both the public and private sector industries to grow. The total amount allocated under the second 5-year plan in India was Rs 48 billion. The bulk of industries like electricity, railways, steel, machineries and communication could be developed in the public sector. Hydroelectric power projects and 5 steel plants at Bhilai, Durgapur and Rourkela were established. Coal production was increased. More railway lines were added. Indeed, such a push for industrialization marked a turning point in India's development. The Tata Institute of Fundamental Research was established as a research institute. The plan achieved 4.27% of the actual growth as compared to its target growth of 4.5%. But it had to face a few hurdles. They were: India was technologically backward, so it had to spend precious foreign exchange to buy technology from the global market. As the industrial sector attracted more investment than agriculture, the possibility of food shortage loomed large. Thus, the Indian planners found the balancing of industry and agriculture really difficult. The third plan was not significantly different from the second and failed. Critics and others felt that prioritizing industry instead of agriculture was the wrong decision, and the Planning Commission would have focused on agriculture-related industries rather than heavy ones. In our next essay, which is the history of planned development of the nation's political and social perspective, part 2, we will speak about mixed economy models, land reforms, green revolution, which led the nation on the path of development. Summary: economic development to ensure well-being of all was the main objective of planned development. Everyone supported the system model of the USSR for development. Planning Commission was set up in 1950 with Nehru as chairperson. The goal of the first 5-year plan was eviction of poverty. It achieved the growth rate of 3.6%. The second plan stressed on the development of the public sector. It focused on agricultural industries rather than heavy ones. The third plan was similar to the second plan, but it failed as the country suffered from poor agriculture.